Hi, my name is Nick. I am here to give you an overview of iMovie, which is a very user-friendly video editing software that's an excellent way to get your feet wet when it comes to video editing. It doesn't have a lot of the frills that more advanced programs such as Adobe Premiere Pro or Final Cut might have, but it'll give you all the basics, everything you need to know to get started. Most of the interface is drag and drop, so I'm here today to give you a tour, show you where the buttons are, how to get the files you need into the program, and get them looking good and sounding good so you can start making your own videos from scratch. I'm going to switch to a screen recording here so that you can see everything I'm doing as I'm doing it. And this is one way I'm using QuickTime Player for this particular project. But this is just one of many ways that you can get your original media. You might be getting some of your clips from YouTube, and we'll go over that later. You might be taking your own footage with a camcorder. But somehow, some way, your movie or project is going to begin with some original footage. And I want to show you how you can get that original footage and save it in a place that you can keep coming back to it. One of the biggest challenges with video editing is having a sufficient storage space to keep your often very large video files. So before we even open iMovie, I'm going to show you the SIM drive. And you'll notice it over here in the corner. This is a large capacity server space that's available on all of the computers in the Sim Lab and the CAM computer lab. That's room 110 and 112 in King Library. And it'll be on the desktop on all of those computers. And if you open that up, you'll see a variety of folders. Each of these is something that a user has created, and their project is inside of that folder. Nobody else can delete that for them. Only you can delete your own files. And so it's a safe place to put both your original media and your movie project once you get moving. I used it today to save some sample media, which I'm going to grab and drag to the desktop. This way, I'm going to have all of the files I need right there on the desktop. There won't be any concern about where it is or trying to find it once I'm inside of iMovie. So once I've done that, I'm just going to close out of the SIM drive, and I'll come back to that later. But it's good to know that you've got somewhere to save your project as you move. So the next thing I'm going to do is open up iMovie. And the icon looks like this. It's pretty easy to see on the screen recording, actually. Down here in the corner, it's got the purple star. And when you open up iMovie, the first thing it's going to ask you to do is take a tour. We're just going to blow past right all that because that's what we're here for today. So the interface here looks the same as a variety of other video editing software. I'm going to maximize so you can see the whole thing here. And we won't get the full picture of what iMovie looks like until we import some media. That's the first thing we're going to do. And that's the first thing you're going to do with any iMovie project that you have. I'm just going to select all of the media that I pulled out of the SIM folder and import that into my project. So now I've got all this media. What I need to do next is actually start building my project. So I'm going to go up to the top left here and hit Create. And I want to create a movie. A trailer is basically a special movie with lots of options that iMovie helps you walk through. But for the most part, what you want out of iMovie is a movie with no theme. All of these themes are something that you can choose, but obviously they're pretty specialized. And it's not often that I found a need for any of them. The no theme option is what you want most of the time. Here you'll get a chance to name your project. I'm going to take way too long and name it something not so imaginative, but useful when I'm going back to look for it later. So now I've got my movie, and I have all of my clips, and all of these things are up here in what's called my library. All of these clips, everything is stored up here, but they're not actually in my movie yet. That's down here. This is the timeline, and this contains all of the media that's going to be in your final video. If you don't see anything down here, you don't have anything in your video yet. So the first decision you have to make is what you want to add to your project and what you don't want to add to your project. If I want to add a 7-minute clip of old commercials, for instance, and I want to add a Michael Jordan picture and Robert De Niro holding a creepy cat, it's very odd, and a ginger ale commercial. So of all the media, I have chosen to add just these things to my movie. And you'll notice all I did was double-click up top and drag them into my movie. I could even add duplicates. You can add as many as you want. If you want to have the same video back to back, you could do that. And it works the same for audio clips. I've got a music clip down here. If I want to add that, all I have to do is double-click it and drag it into my movie. Your music clips appear down below your video so that you can move them around. If you want your music to be at a different part of your video, all you have to do is drag and drop. You can reorder video clips the same way. If I want to begin with this ginger ale commercial, all I have to do is drag it to before my long toy commercial. You actually have a few other options here as well. You don't just have to go in front or behind. You can drag video clips so that they're above another video clip. And if I scan through here, and all you have to do is move your mouse over your timeline to get a preview up in this top panel, you'll notice that I get my ginger ale commercial, and that's all you can see. You can't see the toy commercial that was here before. It's still there, but it's sitting over the top of it. Not until it ends do we get back to my toy commercial. You might want to cut away suddenly in your video to a picture for some period of time. And this is a good opportunity to talk about how you can make a clip longer or shorter. When you have a clip selected, you get the yellow box surrounding it, and that's true if it's in the library or down here in the timeline. And if you mouse over at the edges, you get this double arrow. And if you click while that is on your screen, you can shorten or lengthen your video. You can't make it longer than it was originally. You can't just add blank time to the end of it, but you can make it shorter, and that can be very useful. This is a 7.5-minute clip or so, and I can bring that all the way down to 1 minute. You can see up above the clip, it tells you how much you're changing. Right now, I'm adding 6.2 minutes at the moment. And at the very left, way over here, that tells you how long the clip is at the moment. So both those numbers can be very useful depending on what you're doing. If I want to shorten this down to just about a minute, for instance, I want this far left number. That's going to be more important to me. With still images, you can make them as long or as short as you want, and all that does is change the amount of time that it's on the screen. So if I want Michael Jordan to appear for the full 3 minutes of my project, I can do that. I'm not sure why I'd ever want to have a still image last for 3 minutes, but it is in theory possible. You can modify above the preview pane. Now up here you have many, many options. You can see more or less by clicking the Adjust tab. That will just hide or expose all the different options you have for whatever clip you're working with. So I have this Michael Jordan clip selected. You can see that yellow box around it. So that is what I will be making changes to. If I select another clip, I'll be making changes to that one, even if my preview looks like it's somewhere else. Whatever has that yellow box around it is what I will be making changes to if I hit Adjust and make any of these changes. The other option that I want to talk about briefly is the Enhance button, and that's kind of an automatic filter that iMovie will apply to a video clip. So say this toy commercial, the video is pretty obviously dated here. If I wanted to see if I could make that color a little better, make that look a little snazzier. I can hit enhance and see what iMovie suggests, and that makes the video a little more realistic. Not a lot. It's a pretty old video, so we're limited by what the original footage looked like here. I will say that enhance is a really good option if you have done filming in original or in harsh fluorescent light. So if I take my intro video here, oh, this is going to be embarrassing. So I've got me talking at warp speed here, which is always amusing. And I took this video in a studio room here next to Sim. Oh, that is flattering. But if I hit my enhance button, you can see that changes the light so my skin tones look a lot more natural, and just in general it looks a lot less washed out. So that enhance option can be good if you're taking your own video with video cameras here in King Library or your own camera at home. You'll just have to play with that and see what you like. You can also do your own adjustments with some of the options you see up at the top. Now there are a whole bunch, and we're not going to go into all of them. I'm going to go back to my Michael Jordan clip to show you how some of these work. But I could change the white balance of my picture. I can change the opacity so you can make the image more transparent. Maybe you have it just a little bit there. Maybe you're doing a subliminal message. You can change the fade so that instead of just appearing and disappearing real fast, it fades out over time. What I'm going to do now is select one spot on my movie just by clicking down here in the timeline. And if I hit the space bar, you can see a preview of your project. And you saw that my picture faded out there rather than just disappearing when my time was up. Now the other thing you're going to notice here is that the audio for my Slinky commercial, as well as the music that I put down below, is all playing at the same time. And I'm going to show you that again. Now you obviously don't want those happening at the same time. You're going to want to adjust those audio levels, whether you have music in the background, or whether you have multiple people talking, or whether you just want one video to take precedence over another. You're going to want to change this audio at one time or another. Now you've got a lot of easy shortcuts that iMovie gives you. First, if you mouse over your video clip, down by the audio at the bottom you can see the spiky level indicators down here. You can see these up and down arrows if you mouse over, and if I just drag that up and down, the percentages it's giving me is making that audio louder or softer. So if I drop this to 10% of the original, and I hit the spacebar again, now I hear this music down here much more loudly than I hear my commercial. Now that might not be what you want for your given clip. You could drop the audio levels down for your music so that you hear the commercial much louder, or vice versa. This is going to be something you're going to want to play with in your particular movie. Oh, let's just get rid of that so we don't have to see me talking anymore. Now I'm also going to grab the edge of my video here and drag that, or my audio, so that it clips right to the edge of the end of my movie. I don't want a bunch of blank space. You can see the preview pane is black because the music's still there, but there's no associated video clip. I want my music to end right when my video does, and it will do that pretty automatically for me. You can also fade your music out. There's this little button that appears if you mouse over toward the end of your music clip, not right on the edge because that's how you make it longer or shorter. But there's a little button that appears, and if you can kind of grab that, you can swing that back and forth. This is a fade option. So just like we had with our fading still image, you can fade your audio out the same way they do at the end of really long classic rock songs. I'm going to have to adjust the volume on my movie clip so we can hear that music. And you'll notice that gets softer and softer as we get to the end of the clip. And that can be really useful when you're trying to create a professional, polished video to hand in or to create for your own purposes. What I'm going to show you next is adding text and effects. And that works the same way as adding new media to your project from your library here. iMovie has its own content library. It's down here in the bottom left next to your timeline. And it involves transitions, titles, maps and backgrounds, music clips from iTunes. So if you're working from your own computer, you would see your iTunes library here. But they have a pretty big library of just standard sound effects. If you want to add, did I just see chimpanzee calls? Hockey shots. There are a whole bunch. Some silly, some professional, all of which you can use at your discretion. And GarageBand, just like iTunes, if you had a bunch of stuff in GarageBand, maybe you prepared something ahead of time or recorded your own music, mixed up an intro song, that would all be available here. Most often, though, what you're going to use from this content library are the transitions and the titles. The transitions make the going from one clip to another process a little bit less awkward. So when I'm going from Robert De Niro into my ginger ale commercial, it doesn't just go from one to the next. Let me show you what it looks like without the transition. And then when I add the transition, fade to black is kind of my favorite, so it's my go-to here. Oh, that beautiful music. And we get the nice fade from one to another. And there are a number that you can choose from. The spin in and spin out, the circles, the doorways, some of them are kind of silly. But the cross dissolve, the fade to black, the fade to white, these are all things that you actually see in professional movies and commercials. These are options that you can really use to go from one image to another, to transition from one thing to a completely different thing. The other thing that you're going to want to add is text to your project. And all you have to do here is go to the title menu or the title content library, and you'll see all your options here. Some of them are a little more specialized than others. And to preview these, I do the same thing I do in the timeline. All I do is click on the title I want to preview and move back and forth, just mouse over it. And right at the end, you'll notice it fades out on most of these. Some of these texts have some funky effects, which may or may not be relevant for your project. These are decisions you can make for yourself. You can play with a lot of these, but you're definitely going to want to use some of them. And all you have to do is click and drag to get them into your project. And just like a video clip, you can get that before your project, so you get the blank screen. So you get a blank screen with just the title, or you can move that above your project so that you get the title right over the top of your video. And both of those have their place, whether you want an intro screen and perhaps you want ending credits. You drag those to the beginning and the end of your project. If you want to add somebody's name the same way newscasts do, so kind of a starring effect, you can do that by dragging that text box or that title screen right over the top of your video. And you'll notice it snaps to the beginning or the end of your video clips. That's a really nice feature that makes iMovie a fun and easy way to get started with video editing. If I want to change the text on any of these options, you have to double click. So double clicking lets me get in to this text editor up here, and I can retype this and say anything I want. Entirely by Nick Andrews. And instead of hitting the space bar here, I use the preview screens, pause and play options. For text editing, I'm double clicking here. You also have a number of options up here where your adjust options are. You still have all of your standard options, but you have ways to change the size of your text, change the font, change the justification, bold, etc., etc. I'm going to hit the check mark here to save my changes. It looks a little goofy, but this is all for demonstration purposes, so that's okay. So now I have some music, I have some video clips, some still images, some text. I've got some stuff going on here. I'm ready to finish my video. Now I'm going to go back to my library by clicking here so you can see everything. And you'll notice my movie here is no longer a blank screen. It's got some stuff in it. So it gives me a little preview up here in the top left. But I'm ready to finish this up. Now, iMovie doesn't have a save option, and that throws a lot of people. In order to finish your movie here, you can't just stop right now. You need to take a final step to turn this into a movie file that you can share with your professor, your friends, or the world via YouTube. What you have to do is go to File, Share, File. You'll see some other options here. You can add it just to the iMovie Theater, which doesn't give you as many options. You can email it to somebody, add it to iTunes or YouTube or Facebook. So it has some options that let you interface with social media. But the easiest thing to do is to go to File. That gives you an MP4 video file, which is a reasonably small file that lets you share it pretty easily. I'm going to recommend that you drop the size of your video down to the standard definition of 480p. The chances that you're going to be using the high definition option are pretty low. More importantly, the chances that your professor or your classmates are going to be using the high definition option are extremely low. So the standard definition will change the size of your file. You'll see that this is 132 megabytes. If I go up to high definition, that more than doubles the size of my video. So this can have a pretty big effect on how big your file is, which can matter a lot if you have a size limit on the video that you're submitting at the end of the process. So I can change my title at this point. I can add a description to my video. I can change the size, and I'm going to hit next, and now it gives me a chance to save my project. If you hit the little down arrow here, it gives you more options. I'm going to save this right to the desktop, and I hit save. Now everything disappeared. It hasn't finished yet. It's just working on saving your project in the background. To see how far along it is, you have to look way up here in the top right, and there's a little clock up here, and if you click on it, it'll tell you what's going on. Okay, it is now giving me an estimate. It says it's going to take about 7 minutes to share this project. This is a short video, so I don't know if something's going wrong here or if the computer's just very busy or very confused about life. But once this gets started, this shouldn't take very long. Don't skimp this process, however. You'll notice it's taking 8 minutes right now. This is a short video. I did not expect this to take 8 minutes, but it's a good example of how long sometimes you have to wait for this process to happen. Do not start a video project at the last minute. You really need that extra time at the end for the finishing touches. Whether it's in editing or whether it's in sharing, you really need to leave yourself enough time. Always expect an extra half hour or an extra hour just for those final steps so you don't miss out on a deadline because you are waiting for iMovie to finalize your project. While we're waiting for that to happen, I'm going to minimize this. And I'm going to show you some other options for getting media. So rather than just going to the sim drive and going to sim sample media, you don't always want a goofy Canada Dry or Slinky commercial when you're making your project. You can, of course, take a screencast like I am doing now, but more likely you're going to want to find some files online. Now, both music and video have a lot of options for free media online. But you don't just want to go and grab just anything, both because some people have creative control. Okay, so my share was successful. You'll see my Nick's Movie walkthrough has appeared over here on the desktop. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, but iMovie is still working. But if you want your own audio or video files, you've got a couple of options for things that are not under anybody else's creative control, things you won't get in trouble for using copyrighted material. CreativeCommons.org is a great resource for a lot of different media, whether it's pictures, movies. My favorite thing that they do is music. If you go up here to projects and go to music communities, you see SoundCloud, which is probably their most famous, but there are a whole bunch of different options for accessing large, free databases of music. So if you want background music or you want an intro song for your podcast, these are all fantastic options. The other thing that I'm going to show you how to do is take a video, say that something you find on YouTube, and download it. So there are no options to just take this video and download it onto your computer, and that's intentional. YouTube wants you to share things online. That's their whole business model. Sites like this one, offliberty.com, can take a URL, so all I need is the web address for a website with a video embedded into it. YouTube is the most common, but you can use any URL and paste that here into Off Liberty's address bar, and you hit the power or off button, tell it to go, and it'll take a minute, but it's going to separate the video and the audio files that are embedded in this page, and it's going to bring it here so you can download it. So I'm going to right click here, and this is just the audio, so I could save that if I wanted, but I want the video file too. So it's going to take another minute, but that lets me take the video file and download that to my computer. So here's the audio and here's the video. And it's all I had to do is click on that and it's downloading. It's going to take a couple of minutes, but then I'll have the video file that I can add to my project if I wanted to. And as long as you're not taking Jimmy Kimmel's Avengers Family Feud footage and profiting from it by selling something online, if this is for educational purposes or for your own amusement, this is a perfectly legal use of YouTube videos. This is nothing copyright protected. There are no issues with using this. So this is going to be a great option to add either sports clips or news footage or brief, funny cat videos, whatever you want to add to your project. That's possible to do via YouTube by using a site like offliberty.com. The last thing I'm going to show you is the SIM drive again. So I have my own folder in the SIM drive. Hello, me. And you'll notice I have an iMovie library and an iMovie theater here. I'm actually going to delete those, move them into the trash. Totally fine. This is all my stuff. Because what you're going to want to do sometimes is, instead of finishing your iMovie, finalizing it as an MP4, and we're going to show my beautiful, beautiful video here. Nick's Movie with overlapping sound. Oh, that is a thing of beauty. Generic iMovie at its best. But sometimes you're going to want to pick up on a movie from where you left off. Maybe you want a friend to take their turn at adding something to your movie, or you just have an idea, something else to add, or you're just not finished. You need to come back to the movie later. You can't just finalize it in that case, because this movie clip, this MP4, doesn't have all of your edits in it. If you want to grab and move around music, you can't do that easily. If I added this MP4 to my project, all I would get is one big clip. So if you want to save your movie and come back to it at a later time, you're going to run into a problem because, like I said, iMovie doesn't have a save function. It turns out that iMovie constantly saves your work on the hard drive of the computer you're on. Now, that can be a little tricky to find because on the hard drive, when you log into a library computer, it automatically creates new information for you in this users folder. So I double-clicked on the Macintosh hard drive. I went to users, and I have to find myself in here. It's pretty easy. It's always going to be this house icon, but you always want to double-check. Yep, this is me, Andrew N.A. And now I can see the movies folder. You'll notice it has an iMovie library and an iMovie theater. This is all the hard work that I've been putting into over the last couple of minutes here, with you all witnessing my work in all its glory. If I want to come back to this project later on a different computer, I need to save these files. All I'm going to do is drag them into my folder on the SIM drive. Now you'll notice this is almost a gigabyte of information. There's a lot of stuff in here. This size of a file is very hard to share via email or even cloud storage options. Your best bet is to save it on something like the SIM drive or an external hard drive, something with a lot of space on it, because again, these files are very, very large. Now, once I have these in my SIM drive, I can come back to this at any time, and again, I can work on this on any computer, in the Cam Lab, in the Sim Lab, in the studio rooms, like the one I'm working in now. These are all options for me because they all have the SIM drive. You just have to reverse this process. If you go to the SIM drive and you go to your folder, the one that you created here, you can have your files and you can drag them onto the desktop of the computer that you're working on, or you can save it directly to the movies folder on the computer you're working, which again, you get to by clicking on the hard drive, users, your username, and going to the movies folder. I could drag my iMovie library and iMovie theater from the SIM drive into the current computer that I'm working on. Oh, I really confused it there. Still have a few minutes left. This takes a while. Like I said, this is all stuff you want to plan into your movie creation process. You do not want to shortchange yourself on time when you're working on movie editing. There are all kinds of costly time delays, and you're going to run into all of them if you leave this to the last minute, I promise you. So it's just about done here, but you can see how long that process takes, but how convenient it could be to pick up where I left off on any computer in the Cam Lab or the Sim Lab at a later date. So you don't have to finish it all in one go. You can come back to that later. So that is iMovie. If you have any questions or you run into problems, the Sim Lab, again, right behind me, room 112 in King Library, is always staffed until we close at 2 a.m. So we've got late night hours, and we always have students or staff available who really know iMovie and video editing in general really well. If you run into questions, you've got problems, last minute issues saving a project, or where did my files go, we run into all of that all the time, and we'd be happy to help with any assistance you might need. So just come on by. We will be happy to assist you with any questions you have, and good luck.